and welcome to the. Oh, what happened there? Hey, come on, Ed. Yes. Come on up, and you're right here with me. Okay, and welcome everyone to this PerfWeb Special Program today. We're going to have ourselves a wonderful program today, and yeah, we have some special guests who I will invite here shortly after we get everything kind of worked through. So ignore all of the commotion that's going on around me, and we'll just focus on what we're doing here today. So we are here to welcome, come on up, Deb. We are here to welcome our wonderful guest, Supaporn Kulthinee from Thailand, who is here in the United States. We're going to be saying hello to her in just a moment. But a lot of people wonder, why do we do all of this? I'm not doing any opening remarks today. I was going to do that, but if y'all want to do, you know how to get a hold of us. You know how to call in. I'm sure we have some people viewing from all over the world, which I'm excited about. But I have this beautiful Thai. So I was contacted 2 years ago, to this day, by a young lady. I had no idea who she was, but it was on Facebook. And she says to me, we would like to talk with you about how we could maybe collaborate, with you there in Thailand because of our programs and stuff. And over the next 2 years, because COVID happened, I wanted to go to Thailand. I was like, sure, we will all go to Thailand. We're all going. In fact, we are going next year. Everybody that's here, you'll see everybody here at the desk in a moment. But we did some programs with them, and these are such lovely, wonderful people. But I want to tell you a little bit about Supaporn, because she is, first of all, she's a PhD in physiology. She is very involved with perfusion education and training in Thailand.
Can you figure the mic if it's on?
No.
Thank you.
See, my mic wasn't even on. So I'm assuming you heard me because my voice is so loud that it all got picked up by Ann. But anyway, 2 years ago, Supaporn reaches out to me, and we have, of course, what happens is COVID. And when COVID happens, it kind of derails everything. And we did a bunch of online programs. We were involved in staying in communication with her. And anyway, serendipitously, she ends up doing a research project in Providence, Rhode Island, with Brown University on myocardial ischemia and reperfusion injury, as well as a postdoctorate project that you're doing down in New Orleans. Where in New Orleans is it?
Tulane
on renal autoregulation, something that's very important, of course, to us as perfusionists. So I want to introduce, if I may, our guest, Supaporn Kulthinee. Sawadee-kap. I think that's how you say it. It's the only word I know in Thai.
That's perfect.
It's perfect. I did good with that. And
You're
so
really
welcome
good.
to it. Hey, look, it took me all month to learn that one phrase. So Supaporn, welcome to our program. I want to say welcome to, of course, here. You've been to the United States before. I know you've done a lot of work here. You're here with your family. But welcome to MediWeb, PerfWeb. This is the first time you've been here to our studio. And we picked you up from the airport, scared the heck out of you driving, went to a crawfish farm and grabbed a bunch of crawfish that we're going to cook later. Supaporn loves crawfish, I found out.
Yeah, during my time in New Orleans.
Yes, you did some work in New Orleans. And I'd like to introduce, if I can, everybody for the panel, if I may. There's Mike Brown all the way off to the right there, if we could see Mike. Dave? There he is. There's Mike Brown. Mike Brown. Next to him is Deb Adams, of course. Now, Mike Brown, if you all know Mike Brown from the programs, Mike is a perfusionist extraordinaire, 35 plus years, incredible person, incredible educator, incredible perfusionist. He's working harder in retirement than he ever did actually working in perfusion, which we appreciate so very much. Barbara, thank you. His lovely wife is in the studio, in our massive studio audience. She's there. and
She's way in the back.
and next to her is, of course, Deb Adams. You know, Deb Adams is the director of the Texas Heart Institute School of Perfusion. She's very involved in perfusion education and ethics and has been for many, many, many years. She's also, and the reason she's here today is she's so involved in international outreach. She does a tremendous amount of mission work, particularly in Iran, and you have some very close friends there and associates there that I know you do. If I'm correct, I think I am.
Iran and Iraq.
Iran and Iraq, I'm sorry. So more Iraq or more Iran?
Both.
Both, so kind of 50-50 split there. So Ann is here to give some insight on international outreach as well. And then, of course, our main guest, our guest of honor, Dr. Kulthinee. And then next to her next to me, is Ann Guercio. Of course, Ann is our current president of the ABCP. Congratulations, Ann.
Thank you.
Well deserved, well deserved. We are excited that you are the president and the leader of this very important organization. I know you're also involved very heavily in how the board and international colleagues can work together. Again, international outreach. And you're going to be giving a lecture, I think, on what you see or where the board is now and where it's going in the future with that. And then you have, of course, me, the least important person of the group. Say that again? Magic, you need us? No, okay. No, they don't need me. Okay, so with all of that said, I think we're going to go ahead and get started and go ahead and get Dr. Kulthinee to, I think I'm working on that, okay? That's another one that's tough. Tabby. You go by Tabby. How about, can we call you Dr. Tabby?
You just call me Tabby.
We're going to just call you Tabby. Okay, that's what we're going to do.
Thank you.
All right, and so I think we're going to go ahead and get her lecture started.
Wow. How excited I am. I saw you just, from YouTube for long. We like a big fan of the PerfWeb, and incredible that I'm being here with you. It's just my great honor. So today I'm gonna talk in the topic of the perfusion training and service delivery in Thailand. Where is Thailand? Thailand is in the area of Southeast Asian country. For my talk today, I will start with the historical timeline of heart surgery in Thailand and followed by the perfusion training in the year of 1959 to 1997. And then we have the formal perfusion education since 1998. And actually something quite different from the US. We are not just only perfusionists, after graduate. We can work for the echo sonographer. We can work for cardiac catheterization technologies. I will talk about that. And I will end up my talk with about our society. I will inform you a little bit about our society. All right, let's start with our historical timeline of heart surgery. In our country, we start from course heart surgery with the case of PDA ligation at Chulalongkorn Hospital, which is one of the prominent hospital and university in our country. We started in 1953, which is I think 69 years ago. And then in 1959, we started the open heart surgery. But without the heart lung machine, we do the ASD closure at Sirilan Hospital, which is one of the famous medical center in Thailand. And in the same year, we start the open heart surgery with heart lung machine in the pulmonary valve stenosis at Chulalongkorn Hospital again. So that is, we have the first perfusionist. We recognize her, very appreciating her.
That's not that far off from us here in the United States. You know, our first was 1955 or 53, was it?
53, I believe.
It was 53, so really not that far off. Within the same decade.
Okay.
From our first procedure, the first one done, which was, of course, it was an ASD repair
I believe so,
at
yeah.
Thomas Jefferson University, right? Was it 1953 or 55?
It's 50-something.
50-something, yeah.
It's in
It was
the
before
50s.
I was born.
And no surprise that
before
that's a
you were
nurse.
Yeah, she's
Not
a nurse.
surprised.
That's so similar to
To us,
To us.
yes.
So
very
you
much
were
so.
the nurse also.
Yes. Yes, not
whoever,
uncommon
yeah, very,
in the early days.
exactly. You, come over here.
Yes.
Learn how to do that.
You're a nurse, you know how something about medication, hemodynamics, you know about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're going to teach you to do this. That's how it started
Yep.
here in the United States.
Yep, very similar.
Yeah. So for that at that time, 1959 to 1997, we don't have the like a formal training, right? For no formal education. We on the job training. Most of perfusionists, first nurse, OR nurse, ICU nurse, and we have some for the doctor, and also for the medical equipment technicians. But most of perfusionists is a nurse. Mostly it's the OR nurse. Yeah. Until 1998, we start the formal perfusion education. A group of surgeons, we should have the program the bachelor degree for perfusionists, and then they establish the program at Naresuan University. This is a 4-year full-time program. The first graduate in 2002. I am the third batch of this.
Really?
That's so long time.
So you graduated from this 4-year degree
Yes.
as the third student
Yeah.
through that school.
I graduated in 2004.
Excellent.
That's it's a full-time, 4 years full-time program. But just for learning about the perfusionist at that time. So I show you, I became the perfusionist from 2004 after graduate until 2012. Who am I, Joe? Can you guess?
Yes,
This
I know
guy?
exactly.
No, this is a guy.
Yes, you're to the left. I see you. You're on the
the
left of the
left?
picture with your hand on your right there. I see you.
Ah, you know
It's very easy to pick you out.
That's almost a long time.
You haven't changed a bit.
No,
You look exactly the same. Does everybody here agree?
I agree. Yes.
You all knew who she was.
I did. I knew who
Yeah.
she was. I could know.
Yeah.
Yeah, after graduate, and I worked as a perfusionist for 8 years. Only one hospital I worked for, the heart center at in the northeast part
Yes.
of Thailand. After graduating in 2004, at that time, but after we graduate, we can work for perfusionist, no license anymore, no examination, no test. We can be the perfusionist, but in 2005. We need the license, so we need to take the exam. So our license for the perfusionist, we start from 2005, and then I graduated in 2004. For 2005, I do the exam and get the license.
Good for you.
Good for me,
Even
good
though-
for everybody.
But you were you grandfathered in and took the exam because you wanted to? Because that's a lot of how it happened with us too. In this
Yeah.
country. So
Yeah, we
when
should
we
have.
first started and Perfusion started, there was no exam.
Right.
There wasn't an exam until 75, 76.
Yeah,
Right,
75.
75.
75.
Yeah.
So there was
Yeah.
no exam for
And I
us
think-
either.
They'd let people grandfather till what, 79 or 80 or it was
People
Try
could
to-
grandfather in, and but most of them, I would say, if not all of them, took the exam because they wanted to.
make sure they got it before they had to really take it.
Well, they did it to
Yes.
to be an example to the other.
Oh, yes,
people.
that's right, to be an example.
Yes, they wanted to do
Very
it to
true.
show that they.
Yeah, they did.
They could. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who developed the exam? Were you,
Yeah, the group of surgeons that attribute
so the surgeons wrote the exam. Wow.
And also for the university, that they should have their license, which is very good, like a certified. I do agree. Yeah.
Was it a pass fail, or how was it determined if you were successful in the exam?
Yeah, 80%.
Okay.
Yeah, they calculate for
So
that.
it wasn't a pass fail. You had to get 80% of the questions correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a hard exam.
That is harder than ours,
Yeah.
or higher. Is it higher than ours? What's ours?
Ours can vary depending on how well everybody does, because you're against the test,
Okay.
not against each other. So if you master the cut score, like for just this spring exam, we had just a 70% pass on the basic science and about an 85 on the CAPE, the clinical applications.
Yeah, but it's not a percentage of the, you don't have to score a certain percentage.
Correct.
Correct.
We changed that right before 2000, that we went from a norm reference to criterion referenced.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, like you
do a lot
you
of
mentioned, you mentioned that I transformed to physiologist. I pursued to study physiology. That I would want to share a bit of my life. For during my time was a perfusionist, so many questions happened to me. For example, what's about the renal autoregulation? We control the heart lung machine, we control the ECMO, but we cannot reach the scale that we want. What's about the cerebral autoregulation? And we not just only control for the heart, but the physiology or the whole body. That's our job. Yes. I have so many questions during was the perfusionist. So I make a decision to back to school, start medical physiology at the Concan University on my master and my PhD, do the research. For master and PhD, do the cardiac ischemia perfusion injury. I got a chance to develop the cardio-PGI incredible thing that I did, but I add taurine. Taurine. Taurine is one of amino acid, and we try to develop the cardio-PGI, but I failed. but it's very good experience.
But you learned a lot.
I learned a lot. Yes. I learned from failure a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah. Were those protocols? Were they from the surgeon, or how was your patient management?
No, I test in animals, in animal study, and for the ex vivo for the cardiac function. Yeah, it's not in the human. Yeah. And after got the PhD, I pursue to my question is on renal autoregulation. Still in my mind. I do a case sitting. I email to Dr. Nawa. Dr. Nawa, he was a past president of the American Physiological Society, was the past chair of Hypertension Council, American Heart Association. I email him, Dr. Nawa, I am a perfusionist. I'm very interested to study in renal autoregulation, and I want to do the postdoc with you. And I don't know he know perfusionist or not, but I email him, and very fortunate for me. He accepted me, and I did a postdoc with him to complete my 2-year postdoc in Tulane University. I focus on the renal autoregulation. That's my job at that time. We just published in 2020 in American Journal of Physiology. We study for the interaction of two receptors to control the renal afferent arteriole and see the renal autoregulation. We got 5 awards. He very excellent. That's a very good time of mine. And after compete for my PhD, I went back to Thailand and joined the program at Thammasat University. I show you the slide before. We have the program at Naresuan, but which is the in Thai program. And they create the international program for perfusionists, teaching in English. They just start from 2015, and I joined in 2019. I served as the chair of the department at that time.
So you accept students from other countries?
Yeah, we accept, but we have the student from Cambodia also we have. But most of the students from Thailand, but we teach in English.
Right.
Yeah, for the international program. I'm back to the faculty for the instructor for the perfusionist. So many things we do. But for 2019, 2020 is the COVID time. How we teach them in online version, the perfusionists in online. So we do the video record that I can show you. That's the video record that we did, and so many things. As Miss Nongchana, she was the past president of Perfusionists in Thailand.
Oh,
You met
yes.
her.
Yes, met her online.
Yeah,
Yes,
met
I
her
remember her.
online.
Lovely, lovely lady. Very lovely.
Yeah, that's my time in join with the CICM. For now, we not only teaching for perfusionists, we teach them in non-invasive cardiac investigation. For example, the echo. We do also teach for the cardiac catheterization, cardiac electrophysiologists and pacemaker, and also yes, of course, for the perfusionists. So after they graduate from our program, they have 4 options that they can be. They can be of course, they can be the perfusionist. They also can be the the echo sonographer. They can be the cardiac catheterization technologists, and also for the cardiac electrophysiology technologists. That I told you it's different from the U.S.
Yes, you're
Yes.
doing the for atrial fib, atrial flutter, VTAC mapping,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So because the EP, we call them EP people here, the electrophysiology
Yeah.
people, and that's a whole department unto itself. So somebody going through your program can choose one of these careers once they're finished their training.
Yeah.
Can they swap around?
Right.
They can do
move?
all, actually, because we teach all, like I showed you before, like this is the program provide for them. So after graduate, they can be like a 4 of this, or the special thing that they want to be. They can choose one or all of that, that's included. And I'll show you our training center. Right now, we was supported by like a partial support by Livanova, and
You know, Levanova is, they're coming here to have lunch with us later on today. Ryan, and I don't remember his last, I'm blanked out on his last name, but he's actually coming here today and be able to enjoy lunch with us and stuff. And I hope we can have a conversation. Since you told me that Levanova helps support that, I think we need to try to get more support.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. And also, I'll show you for our training center, we have the simulation, we have I think that's quite similar from here, right? We have the simulation, we have the room for like a practice for students. And again, not only for perfusion, we teach them for the echo, so we have the echo for them. So they have the experience for the cardiac catheterization, the electrophysiology also that we provide for them. And for the last year, because the 4-year program for the last year, they do the research for the student before they graduate. And we do also invite guest speaker. That's why I met you. You know, Joe, how I met you.
You need a better picture of me than this.
Oh, that's not bad.
It is
It looks just
I
like
look
you,
like
Joe.
a goober.
This is COVID time. I taught them, you know, the theory. I taught the principle, everything, and I asked students, what you want to do after that? You cannot come to the university because it's shut down because of COVID. They said, can you invite Joe Basa? Can you invite Joe Basa to teach us? How I can invite him? That's I asked him. Okay, I do the crazy thing. I go to your fan page, Facebook. I should search for email address or something, but I didn't. I go to the Facebook and, you know, I post in the page for we would like to invite you to be our guest speaker or something. I do like a scammer, I think. I feel like,
No,
I'm
I
a
didn't
scammer.
think, we didn't think you were a scammer, no. No, not at all. But I see a theme here. You got into your doctorate program by just writing somebody an email that this is what you need, this is what you want. And you sent me a Facebook messenger, this is what I need and this is what I want. It sounds to me like you just simply ask for what you need and what you want.
You know, that is a secret. My student
Exactly.
didn't know.
Oh, so you only did it for your students.
No.
They should be here. They all
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
get them on a flight, bring them over. Come on, we'll have the whole Thailand Perfusion Society meeting right here.
How many students in
Yeah.
the program right now?
30 students a year.
Wow, 30.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's wow.
30
That's
And they-
students.
And they all
Actually, it's
can-
not a lot job because they after graduate they be
Oh,
a
because they're doing other
yeah,
things.
yeah, not only for perfusion.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. A program here doing 30 would be remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think THI ever was at 30, were they?
Oh, I
20.
think,
20.
yeah,
20, I
20 a
believe, was the
class.
highest, wasn't it?
Yeah, 20 a class, but I'm learning
40
this.
per
I'm
year.
doing, yeah, about 40 per year. Those very first, once it kind of got rolling, the late
Right.
70s, early 80s, and then it went back down again, which I didn't ever remember it was that many until I found some papers.
Some
Probably saw
pictures.
some old pictures
Yeah.
too on the wall. of
Oh,
all
I
this.
got some really good ones. So that's another. So yeah, that's anyway. I'll let you finish. I got.
Are you
a
the
question.
only school in Thailand, or are
We
there
have two
others?
schools.
Two schools.
The first one that I graduated from, but they are in Thai program.
Yeah.
But we are in English program.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
So comparing the education that you received at the first program and now this kind of hybrid where you teach other disciplines in combination or with perfusion, do you see that? Because I could see that would make you a more well-rounded clinician as far as understanding
All those other
the
areas.
other disciplines. But do you think that perfusion kind of takes? How do you get it all done? I guess so that you can be proficient in all those things.
Yeah, I got your point. Yeah, to compare to, I mean, for our generation, we just study for perfusionists. Like we focus for the perfusionists, but right now they study in like a full field: echo, perfusionist, cath lab, and the EP. They work hard. I mean, they study hard. Harder when compared to us. But for the clinical year, we provide us for like a rotation.
Okay.
Yeah, they do very good. I think is quite good for them right now.
I think
Yeah.
the question, if I can ask the same question, but I'm going to ask it a little differently. For us, the way we view things here is the more of any one thing you do, the better at that one thing you are. So do you feel that the diversity of training takes away anything from if you want to specifically be a perfusionist, or is your first year of clinical practice more under some kind of guidance and you're not really just alone? Because here you are a perfusionist, that's what you focus on. Do you think that the amount of cases they do before they get out of school is adequate compared to when, let's say, you first started, when you started and you did nothing but that perfusion?
Yeah, you mean I got your point. You mean because we provide so many ways, is that adequate for them or not? Right? That's your question.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say they need to even for my generation after graduate, we need more practice in hospital. Like, for example, 6 months, some hospital a year until they allow us for like a totally can control patient. That's the same thing for the current generation. After graduate, they need more train in hospital.
Yes.
So
they go get a job where they're going to work at a hospital and then they're proctored.
yes.
They're not just, here, you're on call, good luck, call me if you need me. There's somebody that's more senior that works with them until they gain that confidence.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
It's similar with us.
That's the way we do.
But we don't have, I don't know how long it takes. How long does it take for a graduate of this program to be working completely independently out in a hospital somewhere?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's okay. How long after graduation does a person who's going to be a perfusionist, how long does it take
Okay.
after they've graduated until they are completely independent?
Depend on hospital. For example, my hospital, the heart center, we just do for the heart so many cases, so many experience a month that they have. Right?
Yes.
For our heart center, maybe 6 months.
How many cases do you do a month?
For my heart center, my former heart center,
Yeah.
100.
100 a month?
100 a month.
Wow. So 1,200 a year. That's a very robust program. That's a lot.
But we are the heart center. But for some like a public center, they share the operating room. They may do have 10, 20 a month. So if our students work there, they more need training maybe a year.
Yes.
But for the heart center like me, maybe 6 months. So it depends.
That makes sense. That makes good sense. Yes.
How many hospitals are doing cardiac surgery
Yeah.
in Thailand?
That's a very good question. That's I'll show you for next. Okay, I'll show you.
Okay.
For next.
You're getting there.
Go back.
Tell me to just,
I have
just
some
relax.
some
it's coming.
secret.
Okay, all right. Keep
Yeah.
going.
And okay, I'll go back to you, Joe.
No. Next slide.
Yeah. So and we have the invite guest speakers. So for example, this is my friend. He's Dr. Owen. He's in Yale University right now. We invite him. He worked on the mathematical model, which is very excellent. And when we invite him to talk with our student, he explained about the flow path through the membrane. Very excellent in mathematical model.
Ah, very nice.
Appreciate. And with Dr. Gore from Sakai, he is a group of developed the leukocyte filter.
Yes, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you give the talk for our student. And I met Merle from Rush University, Chicago, Illinois.
Yes.
That's I would want to share with you. We got the email from someone. We would like to visit your center. That's the information in the email. We said, who are you? I don't know. That's my share. And I start to contact with him. Oh, this is Merle from Rush University. He like take a vacation in Thailand and took some part to visit our center.
So nice.
Yeah, of course. Merle, we would like to. We are so happy to have you with us. And can you give a talk for our students? That is the first time when we met. You see, that is just Merle, and this is me, and to give a talk to our students. And for next year, we invite again. When you come to Thailand, we would like to invite you to not only for our students but for our society. That's to share our experiences for the perfusionists. And so for the next year, we not only students but we have some perfusionists. This is our president, and we have the program together with Merle. And this year, again, we will have with him.
Very nice. Very good.
That's
Jim Murray
from
is
email.
such a. I'm coming. Exactly. Another email. Right. Only this time he sent you the email. So you learned from Jim. I know what to do now. I did an email at work. Jim sent an email at work. I'm going to send another email. Now it's our turn to send you an email.
When are we coming?
And one of my very impressive, we have the ECMO, like the ECMO program in Asia country, but they held in Thailand, in Bangkok, in that year. He is the president from the perfusionists from Hong Kong, and his team, and he came to our center, visit our program, and met our student.
You can see here too.
Very impressive with him. When he went back to Hong Kong, he donated the S5, the Livanova S5, the whole set, the new one for us, and we use this for teach our students.
Very nice.
How you impressive art? That's my question. We don't do anything, but you do such incredible thing. That's very good for us. Very appreciate for him. So. Since I met you, I met Merle, I met the president perfusionist from Hong Kong. That made me deeply understanding of the word friendship beyond borders. So And I add one word, perfusionist friendship beyond borders.
I like that.
Thank you. And I will end up my talk about our society. Actually, we have the Perfusionist Club. I can know that. Okay, Perfusionist Club. We start from 1983. And because we just not only perfusionists right now, right? Our program is cardio and thoracic technologists. So we changed the name to CTT Club in 2013. And then we transformed to the Society of Cardiothoracic Technologists, or SCTT, in 2019. We have over 7 members. And turn answer your question. How many how many heart center in our country? We have 37 heart center and more than 5,000 cases a year that we have around.
Pediatric and adult?
Yeah, both pediatric and adults. For our society, we're responsible for education training. We have the education meeting, and can you believe today and tomorrow, this is the annual meeting in Thailand.
Very good.
That's the same day that I met you.
They'll be able to play this if
Yeah.
they want to, because hey, David, this will be online and on YouTube by tonight. Yes. Perfect.
No, that's
So
that's
anyone
very
wanting to
nice.
watch it, if they want to go on YouTube, they can pull it up and watch, then play it.
Yeah, that's very nice. So I would like to summarize my talk with. So right now we have two universities in Thailand offering for perfusionist program. Once again, it's just not only perfusionist program. We call cardio and thoracic technology program. Madnarisuan University for Thai program and the CICM at Thammasat University for English program. After graduate, we have 4 options for jobs. We can be the perfusionist, the echosonographer, cardiac catheterization technologist, cardiac electrophysiology technologist. All of that we can do if you can do it. And our society was founded in 2016. Currently we have the member has over 700 members. Please feel free to contact us, the Supaporn International College at Thammasat University, cicm.tu.ac.th. You can contact Naresuan University as I showed the website, and also our society at thaictt.com. I would like to end up my talk with this slide. We are not close anymore to Bangkok to Houston. The flight time more than over 20 hours.
Yeah, it's a flight.
We are
That's
not
plenty.
close anymore.
That's plenty of time to. That is plenty of time to do a talk. 20 hours. You got the whole flight.
But our love in perfusion
Bring
brings
us
us
together.
together. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Very
Very
nice,
nice.
Tabby. Wow.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you
Getting
Thank
on
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
And I forgot earlier because we were disjointed and everything. You know how I get. I can't ever keep a thought focused very well. But I wanted to talk about why I do all of this, and it is to meet people like you. This is so special to me. But I know that I received this beautiful tie.
It's beautiful.
This actually comes from the CICM, Jalapan International College of Medicine from Thammasat, Thailand, and or at Thammasat, right?
Yes.
And I'm wearing this tie today in case any of your students are watching, to tell everyone thank you. Let me just lower that down. You can see it.
zoom
Okay?
in.
Zoom in. And then also, Tabby and her colleagues sent both Tammy and I, every time we do a program, we are getting these things in the mail, and I received this pen that has my name written in English, etched in it, and then also in Thai. I don't know if you can see that or not, David. I don't know if you can focus in on that or not, but it's just so beautiful. Here, take it off of my head. Thanks, David. This is perfect. That really looks bad, but it's a beautiful pen. That's all I can tell you is it's a beautiful pen. Thank you, and I want to thank you for this.
Oh, it's
And
my
I'm so
pleasure.
glad that that Mike is here, and Deb is here, and Anna's here, in order for us to see how we can take this relationship that's still in its very nascent period and really grow this into something really great. But I do have a scientific question for you.
Scientific question.
Yes.
Yes, please see if I can answer. I hope I can do that.
Why, and since this has really more to do, well, I have two actually, but one in particular, since you're working so much, and I'm very interested in renal physiology. I'm very interested in understanding, and I don't even attempt to pretend to know as much as you do about that topic. But why do we see the level of, which for us here in the United States, you would say AKI is 10 to 15%, and renal failure about 3 to 5%, would you say, for our cases? Is that about what the STS data is?
Yes.
Why do we see such a high level of acute kidney injury post-bypass when we're really there to support the patient? What's the cause? Is it loss of pulsatility? Is it hemodilution? Is it too low of a mean pressure? Why?
That's a important question and a mystery answer.
The mystery.
Still a mystery.
The mystery.
We do the research. I do agree with you. But the first thing that I was thinking about the hemodilution. One paper I think published in 2019, but they study in animal study. They show the cortex and the medulla is respond different way. It's like a special organ and respond for pressure in different way, and also for the hemodilution. Well, the first thing I was thinking about the hemodilution, this effect for the AKI. I was thinking about the renal autoregulation, but I don't have a chance to directly to do the research about the bypass and renal autoregulation. That's I try to develop and pursue too much for doing that. If kidney can control in very good way for the renal autoregulation, it should be protect. But we don't know because we cool down the hypothermia, maybe affect the renal autoregulation. Who knows? Yeah, that's my point.
it is fascinating to me. Mike, you might want to jump in, Deb, Ann, but I know that the brain is there's a wide range that the brain will continue to maintain its autoregulation. It really has to get out of whack before you lose that capacity. Is the kidney, does it have as broad a range, as wide a range of physiologic conditions that enables it to stay autoregulated, or does it lose autoregulation more easily?
You mean compared to the brain?
Yes.
The range of the brain is about 50 to 150, but for the renal, it depends on some textbook, but it's about 60, 70 to 160 to 170. The range is a bit higher from cerebral autoregulation, but for our practice, when we do even ECMO or CPB, we keep the mean arterial pressure at 70, right? 60, 70. It should be enough for cerebral. It should be enough for renal.
So 60, 70 mean.
Yeah, mean
is suitable for is high enough pressure to maintain renal autoregulation.
Is that for everyone though?
Right.
And I think the
That's-
mystery
yes.
is, for
A hypertensive,
for
a
who
chronic hypertensive,
is that
is
not?
enough?
And
Right.
Yeah.
For who is that range different?
Right.
And for you, is it different than me? And I think that's, I don't know this, but just looking at flow to the brain, obviously the same for the kidney. And we need, commend you and what you've done for perfusion all over the world, in your own
Yes.
country, but here, connecting that, trying and starting to connect that dot, because I think we got a long way to go in trying to figure out those questions. But
Yeah.
I think we need to figure that out so that we can say, every case I know just like we measure our pressure, we should be able to measure the flow and the autoregulation for the organs that we're trying to protect. And I don't think we have that technology yet, and I'm sure not smart enough to figure it out, but you are.
Yes, yes. We're more, you know, and that's sort of like me, you know. Well, you guys are, I mean, you all are technically, and I don't mean this as a dig to myself. I'm a very good clinical kind of person, and I do have my strengths. I can look at something and say, this is what I see, and sort of figure stuff out from that. But from a textbook, academic, I guess would be the proper way to say it, perspective, you guys are really smart. All of you are.
Well, Mike was my
And-
teacher, so he's the smartest.
Yeah,
I
he's the
understand.
smartest.
And Barbara, she kept me out of trouble in OR.
No, that's
in
very
OR
true,
too. It's
but-
like, don't do that, okay?
But what I see
So
is
thank
what I
you.
see, right? I look at something and I'm like, this is what we see. We have a renal failure rate that is X. Now, when you look at California to New York to Florida to Chicago to up in
Bangkok.
Rhode Island, it doesn't matter, Bangkok, we have the renal failure is X. And it's the same. So we're like, okay, well, we're within, you know, we're
norms.
national average. You know, we
Yeah.
look good. But the rate of renal failure is higher than I think it should be. And we just don't focus enough. I'm glad you're doing that research. I had one more question for you, one more scientific question for you.
One more scientific.
One more.
Oh, yeah, please.
And this has to do with cardioplegia. Since you're doing your postdoctoral, you're doing a research project on the myocardial ischemia reperfusion injury. Are you looking at anything to do with cardioplegia? Because I'm wondering what your view is of intermittent 4-to-1 blood cardioplegia versus single shot del nido for coronary bypass surgery.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you have an opinion about using del nido crystalloid only cardioplegia to arrest the heart for coronary bypass surgery, not for pediatrics, just for coronary
Okay.
bypass in adults, versus intermittent or frequent doses of blood cardioplegia.
Okay, I mean, just my personal view and maybe the conventional way for me. I was thinking if we give blood, if we have blood for some time, like intermittent for blood, maybe more preserved for the heart. That's my point of view. I may not correct, but I would prefer to, for the blood for some time. Yeah, that's my view.
So your preference
I would say
is
that. Yeah.
blood cardioplegia versus del nido for coronary bypass surgery. And
Yes.
from a reperfusion injury perspective, I mean, are you doing much with cardioplegia, or are you only looking at, let's say, coronary atherosclerotic disease where you have an occlusion and then you revascularize it and have reperfusion injury? Where's your research at on that?
Actually, I don't have the experience for the del nido because I was a perfusionist in 2012.
Yeah.
We
They
don't
weren't
have
using
the,
it
yeah,
for this.
Yeah, just only blood cardioplegia for me, but for my research. But just some part, I do the crystalloid, but I focus for the added taurine in cardioplegia. So
So
that's
you're
my
adding a
part.
substrate,
Yeah, I added for
and you're adding taurine.
I added taurine. Our hypothesis at that time, the effect for antioxidant, so maybe protect the heart. But we do just small amount from the animal study, 3 or 4 at that time. Yeah.
Didn't we do that? We used to do that, right? We used glutamate and
And
aspartate.
aspartate.
It's still
Yeah.
in.
And
And
it's still in
it.
some
It's
of
still
them.
in the cardioplegias, so we were
The
using that
Buckberg,
as a
whatever,
substrate
they
Yeah.
guess
in
what you
order to
call it.
try to, but I don't think they were using it for antioxidant. We were using it for energy, right, as opposed to oxidative stress. So the taurine, is that an energy source or is it just an antioxidant source?
I focus for the antioxidant properties. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, so maybe that's something we're going to have to add to our cardioplegia would be not just the substrates for the energy source, but also an antioxidant. Because we do, what's your thoughts on mannitol? Because I know you're doing a lot of stuff with, I'm assuming with oxygen radicals, right, with the reperfusion injury, and so the reactive oxygen species. Do you see mannitol as a good scavenger of oxygen radicals and worth giving before we take the cross clamp off?
Okay. I haven't had a chance to do the research about that by myself, but for the review for the paper, they quite prefer or they show the good benefits for the mannitol for the scavenging properties. I give you answer. I think yes, I would say yes. Mannitol is like a support for the scavenging.
So the data supports continuing to put mannitol in just prior to removing the cross clamp and reperfusing the heart.
That's from the review that I read. Yes, I would
Yes.
say yes for that. But I don't have the experience to do the research directly about that. Yeah.
Perfect. Very
Yes.
good. Excellent. So, with that said, any other questions?
Yeah,
Mike?
I've got a couple of quick
Yeah,
ones.
I do
Tabby. Do you have a continuing education requirement after you receive your degree? And then I have another question to follow that.
That's an excellent question. Our university, the international program, we don't have, but for the Thai program, they have the master degree. I can go back for your answer again. For the master, you need to choose which specialization you want to study. You want to study perfusionist, so you take more 2 years for perfusionist. You want to like good at in echo sonographer, you go directly for do the research and more training for echo sonographer. That is the master degree that they provide at Naresuan University. But we don't have, but Naresuan University they have, but yes.
And then past the master's degree program, do you once a year, we obviously in the States, we have to accrue a certain amount of continuing education points in order to keep our licensure and our certification up to date. Beyond the master's degree program, is there something the perfusionists there in Thailand have to do every year to report to a national board per se to say that I've continued my education beyond just the
Training.
The training, yes.
Actually, it's not the training, but we need to keep the score, the credit, right? Right? You are CEU, I guess. We need to collect the score also. So we need to attend the meeting. We need to enroll for some course to collect the score. Yes, we have that.
And the second question, maybe I could ask Ann of this here. We recently had National Perfusion Week here in the United States. It was the first week in May. It's so funny how so many people don't know that even in the profession that we do have a week dedicated to us. It was very well documented and put on Facebook with the international societies from pictures all over the world. Leading into that, will we ever get to a point, Ann, where we're going to accept reciprocity of education from other countries as applying that to credentialing and certification and licensure in the United States?
It's a
Tough
great-
question,
It's
right?
a tough question. There's a lot to that, in
Yes.
terms of economics and
Yes.
protectionism. And there's some examples that I'll have in my talk about working in other countries. I know Debbie doing mission work probably has some insight and some experience on what that looks like. We're not that different listening to Tabby talk in terms of how we approach, developing our perfusion education and our credential. Where in my talk, we'll talk about a couple different credentialing boards, Europe, Australia, India. So we all have a really similar formula. In terms of we want our education to be cohesive, we want our credential to be based on some sort of examination, obviously, and then some recertification for continuing, case requirement, that kind of thing. So we're all very similar that way. So it's not it's not much of a leap to say, well, why couldn't we all just go work everywhere? And that's where it gets a little sticky in terms of politics, government, how countries are organized, and are people concerned for their job? How does that work? So it's a huge question.
Multifaceted.
But I do believe that the way this was fascinating. Thank you so much for presenting this, because like we said in the first 5 minutes, what a similar journey compared to the States and getting our credential established.
Right.
So similar.
Right.
And it seems to be very similar elsewhere too.
Yeah.
So we're not that different, but how do we come together? And what makes sense, what isn't, what's fair, and what makes the economics and the politics. Usually that's the
Yeah, it's
for
very
them.
interesting with that. When I graduated many moons ago, on my certificate of graduation it says cardiovascular assistant. Doesn't even say perfusionist.
Wow.
At that point, we did a lot of different things. We did some stuff in the cath
scrubbed.
lab. We scrubbed. We first assisted. We did some animal lab work. We did, some new stuff with ECMO and
Anesthesia.
stuff like that. So, and I was fortunate before I got into perfusion school. I worked for a year at Children's Medical Center in Dallas, and I worked in the cardiac cath lab, which so helped me with learning about pediatric anatomy, physiology, and stuff like that. So I think it's real interesting that we see that along the same parallel lines is what they've done with their program also, and they have these 4 different areas of techniques and treatment modalities that you can be a part of. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So.
My question earlier was more along that line. Our education, Ann and Mike and mine, we did rotations in all those various subspecialties as well as perfusion. And so I think it actually brought knowledge back to enhancing your clinical ability to be a cardiovascular perfusionist. However, we did have such a large case volume that we got the reps, the muscle memory to be able to do lots of perfusion cases. But spending, weeks in the cath lab and anesthesia and going on the floor and seeing patients, that enhanced my knowledge behind the pump. So I think, and looking at the 2 models, it's like if we had the time, the resources, and the knowledge, which I don't have, to be able to make a program like that, it's like that's kind of where, I'd love to go. To the, just to add a little bit about the international education and, the accrediting body that accredits the perfusion education programs in the United States is KHEP. And KHEP does have a model to accept international, it's starting for international sponsors. So if they meet the same criteria, I think what's difficult is how to make sure that you assess, and so the education part is similar
in the
exactly,
scope
and then how that those measures, which there's organizations that do that, but I don't think it's going to be never. I think it's going to come, and then it would be a matter of then Ann and the board have a big job to decide if that if KHEP recognizes your program in Thailand, then what happens? So I think those are questions that will come in the future. But I think sharing knowledge, and we bring in all of our all of us that we're recognized as professionals, and what are our knowledge, skills, and our sharing that makes us all better clinicians, and that's the whole point. And
I
that to
agree,
take care
100%.
of
Right.
You bring up some incredible points. I think that too, it's one thing that I noticed is that when your program started, it was only perfusion,
Yes.
and then it evolved into this 4 multidisciplinary program of perfusion, EP, echo,
Cath lab.
sonography, and cath lab specialist. And what Mike was saying, Deb, you were saying it, and I know that's your experience as well, and mine, that when we first started years and years ago, because we're all
Mid-century.
we're
That's a good word.
That's what Chantel, my daughter, calls me.
we're
mid-century.
seasoned people, and that was our experience. Whereas today, it's gone the opposite direction from you. It's gone to only perfusion. Whereas we did all those other things before. We had to learn about vents, and we had to scrub, we had to learn how to read cines, we had to learn, I mean, there were so many things we did. We didn't do echo, but we put arterial lines in, we did all kinds of things. We don't do that anymore. We focus only on the pump. I had one question. Is there a requirement in Thailand to keep your license to do a certain number of perfusion cases or sonography cases, echo, or whatever it may be? Do you have a requirement that you do so many cases with the heart-lung machine along with your CEUs to keep your certification?
You mean
license.
requirement for case?
For cases, yes. So do you have to do 10 cases or 20 cases or 30 cases per year
Okay.
in order to keep your license current or active?
No, just
No.
for the score, just for collect the credit.
The credit CEUs.
Yeah.
So it's the educational requirement.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
not a clinical requirement.
Yes, right.
Yes. So that is a little different than ours.
Right. That is different.
Well,
And also often talked about too, in terms of what does that number mean of annual clinical activity? It comes up a lot.
I'm sure it does.
and you did get a message from Pataralaniaporn, YUWAPONG
What is that?
Do you know this person, Tabby?
Oh yeah, that's.
We have a phone
maybe
call?
My friend.
You know them?
Yeah, that's my friend. Yes.
Your friend?
Yes.
To say hi.
Yeah,
Hello.
say hi, สวัสดีค่ะ.
There you go. Hey, this is Joe Basha. Who's on the line?
Your friend?
Hello, I can't hear him.
There you go.
Hey, hello.
Hello, how are you?
This
Can
is
you-
Dr. Navar.
Dr. Navar,
Hi,
how are you? We just
How
worked,
you
we-
enjoy it?
how are you?
You want to answer the renal question?
Yeah,
Please
he can answer the
answer,
renal
please
question.
answer the
Solve
renal
the mystery
question.
for us.
You need to listen on the phone.
I want to congratulate Dr. Kulthinee.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Navar,
Yeah,
could you
you ask
please,
him. Yes.
you need to listen on the phone and turn your computer volume down.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Navar,
Yeah.
you need to listen on the phone and turn your computer volume down.
Okay. I got it. Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, you ask him. He's a renal physiologist.
Yeah.
Your volume down.
Okay. I got it.
Okay, Dr.
turn it
Navar,
off.
much better, much better.
So, I'm interested in the inflammatory agent activated in the blood during the bypass. We know that if you move the blood through artificial systems, tubing, you may activate a lot of inflammatory factors, cytokines, chemokines, that may then, when they go back into the body, may cause inflammation. Is there any research on trying to prevent the activation of inflammatory factors during the bypass procedure?
Well, I could go first, and then you guys can go in. Yes, absolutely. Generally speaking, we use we used to use aprotenin, which is had kallikrein inhibiting units, but they stopped using aprotenin some time ago because they associated it with a very high degree of renal failure. Normally, the amount of inflammatory processes that take place currently, we just accept, and it does not seem to have a long-term effect. But if you have someone who has a cytokine storm going on, gross inflammatory process, they have the CytoSorb filter, which is something that is being used a lot in the intensive care unit, but can be used on bypass itself. So, and that is a whole blood adsorption for a lot of these inflammatory mediators. And so there's most of your routine coronary cases and valve cases being done. We really, we have some coatings and some, they call it smart tubing and things like that, where they have some level of biocompatibility. And so the real question becomes, is it clinically significant, the amount of inflammatory processes that are initiated from going on bypass? And I think that by and large, most people are able to manage it on their own. However, anyone that has SIRS or whatever the case may be, you're dealing with the gross inflammatory process. There's CytoSorb, which seems to be the most popular device being used right now, or molecular adsorption filter, but there are several others out there where they do plasma reabsorption technology and basically use, instead of whole blood, they separate the plasma and then run it through some kind of inflammatory mediator adsorption process and then reconstitute it and then put it back into the patient. So pretty much, I think that's the best answer I can give you. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Joe, doctor was disconnected, so if you can call back.
Okay, you can call back if you're listening. Hopefully he turned the computer thing up, but we can still discuss it.
Well, I agree. The coatings, for sure, for regular bypass runs. Obviously, I believe the CytoSorb really came to light in the ECMO during COVID.
Yes.
And all of that going on with
But it
those
existed
patients.
before COVID.
Right.
It just really became popular,
Right.
because people were just grasping at anything that would work.
Right. And then, just some techniques, in terms of the cardiotomy suction coming back into your circuit.
Yes. Yeah, reducing the blood-air interface. That's
Right.
another thing that I think we did, where and there are places still to this day that do not use cardiotomy suction to go back into the heart-lung machine. They only use cell saver. And then there are places which, it's just so crazy to me, because I don't think we really know. The data is so incomplete and contradictory a lot of times. But there are places that don't use cell saver at all, and everything goes into the heart-lung machine. They refuse to use the cell saver. And both of those programs, if you took both programs with these completely divergent techniques, have similar outcomes.
Right, so it's really
So
hard to say.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out, and I think that's something that we see a lot of. And hopefully Dr. Navarre will be able to call back, but it's... Oh, good, Dr. Navarre.
I'm
I don't know
listening.
if you heard my answer,
I'm
sir.
on-
I hope
I'm
you
listening
did,
to
but
everything you're saying.
Ann added to it, but it was online.
I just want to let you know, I listened to everything you said. I turned the phone off and listened to your explanations on the computer. But that's very helpful. It's interesting.
Yes, sir. Thank
Can you
you.
hear me? Okay. Thank
you-
you very much for listening to my question.
Thank you so much for calling in, and that was a real honor. That was a real honor. Thank you. So,
Yeah, you bet.
thank you, sir.
Congratulations again to Dr. Kulthinee.
Listen, we're going to take real good care of your prize student over here, but we're going to, what we're going to do is either we are all going to Thailand and you're coming with us, or we're coming back here and you're coming here and join us in the studio, because are you still online? Are you still on?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a question earlier, because I know you spend a lot of time on renal physiology, and we've been discussing that. I don't know if you heard the question earlier, but we're somewhat confounded with what seems to still be a relatively high acute kidney injury and high acute renal failure process that occurs every time we put patients on cardiopulmonary bypass. What valves are worse, obviously, which is not uncommon with a lot of things. Mixed cases, CAB valve, or even worse when it comes to AKI and ARF. But do you have any idea as to whether or not the loss of pulsatility going on cardiopulmonary bypass, the hemodilution, all of those, and the lower pressure we tend to run really affects renal blood flow autoregulation?
As long. Ooh. I lost.
No, we're here. We hear you.
As long as you maintain the pressure within the autoregulatory range, which goes all the way down to about 60 or 70 millimeters of mercury, then the autoregulatory process will dilate the afferent arterioles, as Dr. Kulthinee has studied before, and will maintain renal function. Now, that's assuming that you don't have some of these things that we talked about, just, any cytokines or any release of various hormones like endothelin or epinephrine or other agents that may cause vasoconstriction. But the autoregulatory mechanism can maintain the blood flow normal at perfusion pressures down to about 60 or 70. So really the autoregulatory mechanism is geared to try to maintain renal blood flow in the face of reductions in blood pressure.
So is that blood pressure so do you see any effect in loss of pulsatility on that autoregulation, or as long as your mean pressure is above 60, 70 in normal patients, you should be okay? Should you make an adjustment for patients who have chronic hypertension, for example?
Well, hypertension may have lost the autoregulatory ability, so that as blood pressure falls, the kidney function falls as well. That can happen. And so there is some discussion. From time to time, various investigators have pointed out that the pulsation may be very important, in particular in preventing, various cells, in particular the stem cells, binding to the endothelin. So the pulsatility seems to be able to prevent any of that. But in general, we find that the average arterial pressure is probably the most important thing that we're talking about.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Navar. Thank you so very much. We've heard all about you, and now we also got you to call in. We appreciate that. So can you believe it, David and Magic? Listen, I have to tell you this, Dr. Navar, and everybody here at the table. David just said to me, I think only about a couple of weeks ago, this doggone phone, no one ever calls in on it. Look, David, somebody called in today, okay? They called in today. Thank you, Dr. Navar.
Thank you, Dr. Navar.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna close the phone now and I'll just listen to the computer. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, that was wonderful. That was lovely. Absolutely lovely. We appreciate that so much. I'd really like to sit down and visit with him and see if we could get him to maybe give some lectures as well, because I think that would benefit us as a community to have renal physiologists. I think that would be a perfect addition to our education, group of content experts. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Anne, are you ready?
Well, do we have time? I have more questions for her.
You have more time? Yes. We have plenty of time.
I was curious to know, so they learn 4 different disciplines. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many work in all 4? Does every graduate of the program, will they pick one and just go into it, or will they continue to work in all 4 areas.
You mean after they graduate?
Yes.
They work in all 4 fields, or they just work in the specialized that they
Right.
want?
Which can they do that?
Yes. Actually, it depends on hospital.
Okay. So it's almost like based on the employment model
Yeah.
or how they want their job description, I guess?
Yeah, for example, in my heart center, because so many cases, so they cannot be perfusionists and then echo, and then they cannot because
So busy.
Yeah, they're so busy. So they may specialize, but in some like a private hospital, there's like a low amount number of cases. They may like a rotation. They can work echo, perfusionist, something like that. Yeah, but so, to answer you, for our records, they quite do the special in just the way that they want to do cath lab, do echo, do perfusionist in separate. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
It is. There's so many similarities, but yet there's these subtle differences. The differences are subtle. I think that we're more similar than different, but the differences are there, you know. And I think that here, I think it depends on what hospital you're working at as well. You know, if you're in a low volume account in the middle of nowhere, it's not unusual that if you can't find something to do that's of value, somebody's going to find something of value for you to do. So you may be better off looking for finding something else that you actually enjoy doing, because you may end up doing that. Because here in the United States, we also have programs, not too many left, that do 12 plus 100, but I mean, you're doing that at Texas Heart, you're doing that at St. Luke's, they're probably doing that at Methodist. Or close to it, if not a little more, you know, somewhere in that range. Collectively, our practice up here in the north, we do 11 to 1,300 hearts a year.
Cleveland Clinic's doing.
Cleveland Clinic's doing still probably 2,000.
2,000.
Yeah, 2,000. But there are most of the programs in the United States, the overwhelming majority of them do 200 or less.
That's true.
You know. And there's many programs that only do 50, right? We have 2 here that probably do between 50 and 60 cases. Now the difference, Tabby, I have a question for you. Here in the United States, we have different employment models. So you can be a perfusionist that works for a hospital. You can work for a group of surgeons. You can work for a perfusion service contract company, or you can work for yourself and be completely independent. Does that also exist in Thailand?
We have, but very rarely, I would say rarely for independent, maybe 1 or 2 perfusionists that I know for like independent. We have a group of surgeons, but maybe just only 1 group of surgeons. So rarely of that, but most of 99.99% work for hospital.
Work for hospital.
Okay.
So the surgeons work for the hospital, the perfusionist works for the hospital, the nurses, everybody pretty much has you have an employment model.
Yes, but we
And-
have, I would say we have, but very rarely.
Few.
Yeah, yes.
Infrequent,
Yes.
not very many. Yeah. Here in the United States, it's probably, what do you think, 50, 60, 40 as far as employed
About
versus
that.
independent?
About that, and the last survey that we did, it's still predominantly hospital employed,
Hospital.
but contract is creeping up there.
Yeah, pretty big number, really.
Yeah, it's
I mean-
increased. It's the second.
But it's about, what do you think it's about
I think
40%?
I would
Or less.
65, 35.
65, 35, yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah, that's surprising. Well, you know, we saw this with cardiac surgeons. Here in the United States, it was thought of, heart surgeons believed that to become an employee of a hospital was the worst thing they could do.
Taboo. Yep.
Like that was, yes, and if you were a hospital-employed surgeon, the other surgeons looked down at you. Now, 80 or 90%, it's very high, of all heart surgeons are employed at hospitals. It's changed dramatically. It has to be at least 80%.
I'm not sure, but
I'm confident it is.
yeah.
There's very few independent left, but we're seeing, it seems like I'm seeing perfusion independence, it's kind of flipping. In my view, I see that gaining and surgeons becoming more employed. It's kind of crossed over where it was the other way. For the longest time, it was perfusionists. In the very beginning, there were no independent perfusionists.
No, my first job, I worked for a surgical group. I worked
Right.
for surgeons. They were my employer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at that. I don't think anybody does that anymore.
I don't
There's a
think-
few.
I think
There's a few left.
It's
Yeah.
a few,
The
but
very
they had,
few.
but they had to really restructure because the Stark laws, that's, you know, you got to be careful. So since then,
Yeah,
surgeons.
but I don't think that applies to Stark.
Yeah,
So we have
it-
laws here in the United States.
You need to be very careful if you're, so I think surgeons kind of
I think if
moved
you're
away
selling
from-
product,
Yeah.
that becomes.
But if the
thing.
perfusionist is using, anyway, it got intertwined in there.
It did, and got, so
So I
here
think
the,
Ann's right, that model's probably
yeah, there's only very few.
historical.
But just so you are caught up, here in the United States, we have I don't know if you have this, you may have this in Thailand as well, but we have a law here that's called STARK, S-T-A-R-K, and I can't tell you exactly what the acronym stands for, but there's STARK 1 and STARK 2. And basically what it says is, if you're a physician of any kind, you can't buy this widget or be financially invested in this widget and still put this widget in a patient, because there's this other widget that may be better or just as good, but because you have a financial interest, you're going to use this and it may not be the best for the patient. So they created a law to prevent that from happening. Do you have that?
Yeah, we have.
You
We
have the
do
same
have,
thing.
Yes.
Yeah. See, it's just no different. Doesn't matter where you go in the world.
I know.
It
it's
could be 20
interesting.
hours away by jet. I wonder how long it would take my plane to get there.
You'd have to stop in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I don't think I could make it to Hawaii.
At least for a week.
I think we'd be stopping in the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, okay. Well, don't try that, Joe.
No.
Okay.
No. No. I have landed on the highway, though.
Oh, my
So
God.
just so you, well, you know that. I landed in Oklahoma. So I have a plane. It's just a propeller, you know, it spins around. You know, it's kind of like a rubber band, you know. And so I'm going to take you
Have you
flying
been
one
on the
day.
plane?
No. And so I was in Oklahoma. I was going to Tulsa, city in Oklahoma, and I was flying along, and I don't want to get into all the details. It was my mistake, but my engine stopped, and I had fuel starved the engine. I had gas. There was plenty of gas. I just messed something up. So
The
I
gas
just
wasn't getting to the.
yeah, it stopped going and just stopped. It was just very quiet. And so I had a series of other problems prior to that happening. And so I made a decision that I was done with this flight, and I saw this road, and it didn't have a lot of traffic on it, cars. So I just decided I was going to land there. So I did.
God.
And
Oh
I
my
made it on the news. They're very famous.
It's
And,
famous. CNN.
very
What
famous.
did you say? For
I made
you?
it on the news. Anyway, I figured out what my problem was, why this happened, and they were nice enough to block the road off with police cars and fire trucks, and I took back off again. and went to Tulsa.
It was probably the biggest thing that happened in that town in 20
Morris,
years.
Oklahoma. So Morris,
They're
Oklahoma.
still talking about
They're
it.
still talking about
Lydia
it.
knows
And
that
it's the
she
Joe
knows about
Bosha
that.
Memorial
Yes.
Highway
The
now.
Joe Bosha Memorial Highway, exactly. Okay.
Lydia's like, that's the guy that landed on the highway.
Yes, that's the guy that landed on the
I can't
highway.
believe that.
You ready?
Sure.
Or do you want to have more questions?
Well, we're all going to talk about
Yes, we're gonna-
during this whole thing.
Yes, that's what
So-
it's like. One big party.
I mean, there's slides here, but you know.
Can you believe how serious we are here? See, you thought we were very serious. Now you're learning the truth about us. Okay, we just like to have fun, right? Okay, ABCP and International Outreach and
Okay.
Guercio CCP, LP MBA, and President of the American Board of Cardiovascular Perfusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we all are very glad that Anne's the president of there.
Yes,
Our CCP is
of
in
all
good hands.
of all the people that are happy that Ann is the president of the ABCP now, you're looking at them, okay? Because you have no idea how much of a pain in my neck getting things approved has been. We're going to talk about that later. We're
Okay.
cooking the crawfish.
That's offline.
That's offline, yes.
Well, Joe, thanks for having me. Thanks. I'm honored to be with this panel. My mentor, my teacher, and Debbie and Mike, known him forever, and Texas Heart in the audience. You know, just our history and our background is I think looking at it now, we were more fortunate than we ever knew.
Yeah.
I know I've told myself that so many times. I just can't believe it. You know, when you look back at what was happening there in the 80s, it was an amazing time, and I just happened to apply and get accepted. And my parents thought I was crazy to move from Washington State, and they told me I was on my own to make that work out financially. But anyways, what a journey it's been. So it's just a pleasure to be here, an honor to be serving on the board. I have to actually, you know, Debbie was the one who got me interested in giving back that way 11 years ago. And so it's also been an honor to serve the perfusion community. I think it's really important that we listen to the perfusion community. I think we're really there to represent the community, so we really want to know. And so, you know, if you get a survey attached to your recertification cycle, please take it, or suggest a question we should be asking the
Well,
community.
I say a lot of things tongue-in-cheek and have fun, but you serve the board, and Deb has served the community, and Mike, you've served the community, and Tabby, you have served the community with distinction and honor. So I appreciate that from all of you. I do want to mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, I just hope we can continue that. I know with our schools and our students that I exposed to, and you've seen them and you've hired them. I hope we're in good hands going forward. It's a different world. It's a different generation, but I think there's some great things there. So we're going to talk about what we're doing internationally, or how we're different or similar. I think with Tabby's talk, I think we all realize we're kind of similar. So we're just going to go through that, and what do we think, you know, what are people, perfusionists, internationally concerned about? What are we concerned about in the United States? I think it's always better to kind of understand what other people's credentials all about. And just listening to Tabby, that's very exciting, enlightening, and I feel like, oh, okay, this is really not that different. So I have no disclosures. So, I mean, this was just going through the internet and talking to some people. This is not a complete list, but there are several boards of cardiovascular perfusion throughout the world. You know, the ABCP is just one of them. We do work with Canada. I'll get to that in a minute. But there is a European board, there's an Indian board, there's an Australian board, and most recently, in the last couple years, a Latin American board, which we'll go into that, because I think for the ABCP, that's probably one of our most recent outreaches in terms of helping that continent align and become cohesive. Amazing story, amazing people down there. But it all kind of started at Texas Heart with one of their students that's now in the Dominican Republic. So
Wow.
yes. So that was great. And I'm sure this is not a complete list, but it was just looking around and trying to look at what they require and what we require. And so how we're similar is that if you would go to any of those websites for those credentialing boards, you would see that they do provide a credential. So there is a certification and there's a recertification. Doesn't look exactly the same, but it's not that different. There's also established standards to become credentialed. For instance, in the European board, you have to have trained at an accredited program that they have approved through their board. And you do have to pass a written, a practical, and an oral exam, at least according to their website. If there's anyone, a European cardiovascular perfusionist, and that's not true, please call in or type in and correct me. But just going on their website, that was a 3-part. And it'll list schools throughout the different countries that have these programs. So if you went on there, you would be able to see that and see what they do. India was very similar. They do have a testing cycle as well. I'm sure Australia does too. So you will have a professional requirement, a annual case requirement in some places, and obviously an education requirement. Some of these boards credential their own the schools. And actually the American board did for some time, or a little while, and then they gave it over to KHAP. And I would assume, Tabby, you said your surgeons kind of organize that test, and the programs are approved.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat similar. So there seems to be an overseeing body of some sort, whether it's also your credentialing board or it's through another organization. You'll have that. So among all those, very, very similar. So how we're different is how the world is different, but yet similar. Again, a political structure of a country or a region can be very, very different. You can have democracy, communism, socialism. You can even have some theocracy. I know that, especially in the Muslim countries, it's very tied to how they govern. So those can be obstacles. There's things you have to deal with, like we said, just the political climate. Also, who's paying for all this? How is healthcare structured in those countries? Is it a single payer? Several are. Is it private or is it both? And so that kind of drives, in some ways, how you're organized in terms of who's working, how they're working. So that can be very different. And then, of course, people would argue with supply chain, we're all in the same boat with resources these days. But, what's the opportunity in different parts of the world? Is there funding? Is there research? There's a lot of people who come to the United States for research. You're here for research.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that just depends. And then availability of supplies. How easy is it to get things? What kind of things can you get? I mean, all of that ties together in terms of what service you're providing and how you can provide it. And to be doing more than one thing at one time is interesting, and probably, in some other countries, probably true. They're probably doing a lot of different things in addition to running perfusion equipment.
Yes, yes.
And I think, Debbie, with your mission work, you probably could give us some great examples of that. So, like I said, probably our most recent outreach was to the Latino American Board of Cardiovascular Perfusion, or getting that started. That was a THI student from the she was actually from Venezuela at the time, and now she's in the Dominican Republic. She came to school, perfusion school in the United States, but she went back and wanted to align standards for all of Latin America, 17 countries. And again, the language isn't the same throughout, and also the way that they were trained, very similar to our stories including tabbies. You know, in different countries, OJTs possibly. I guess according to BB, who is the student that has now become the organizer of this board, Brazil was the most organized and had the majority of the perfusionists, about 700, and they had their own board. But again, her vision was to set standards, guidelines, and a credential, which of course was our journey in the 70s. It was Tabby's journey. And probably every board that I listed there had started somewhere. So she really partnered with us. Our president at the time was Ed Delaney, who's a program director at Hofstra up in New York. Went to Venezuela, went with her, did a lot of communicating, helped her organize. The European board was involved in that. So again, I think us as a profession, we like to collaborate. I think we feel like sharing just makes us stronger. It's kind of these external forces that kind of take it in directions that we don't often control. But in terms of our spirit as professionals, I think we're all about helping each other, because again, it's all about education, setting some standards, helping these countries help us all align and learn from each other.
Yes.
And I'll get into that a little bit too. So we really worked with her. There was some pushback, especially from established countries that had their own things in place. We don't want people taking our jobs. Of course, the OJTs feeling a little, I don't want to say inferior, but I'm going to have to take a test. Am I going to be able to pass that test? Then I don't work. You know, there's a lot of things that they had to deal with, but they really pushed forward. They just kept at it. In fact, BB will tell you that Ed said, you know what, it doesn't matter if only 20 people take the test, give the test. And it has really just grown and mushroomed. She's spoke at the conference, THI conference 2 years ago. Fantastic story. And so now they have been able to have a credential. The Brazilian board endorsed that credential. They still have their own, but they also endorse that one as well. So they do that, and they modeled their certification, recertification very much similar to ours. So they do have a case requirement to recertify every year, and they do have a two-part exam. So that was kind of exciting for us to work with them and to actually see it, you know, come to fruition. And it's really become very popular. They have a blog. They have all the different countries participating, and it's just been a win-win.
Good.
So you've got countries getting better training, obviously delivering better care, given those opportunities. So
And that's really at the end of the day what it's all about,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
You know, there's a lot of smart people on this planet. Depending on, it doesn't matter where you're from. And I think that the goal of people like yourself in these leadership positions is to do things that are in the best interest of the patients and the community of practitioners, not individuals. And I think that's very sometimes hard to do because you yourself are an individual.
Right.
You know, and I think that a perfect example of that is cardiac surgeons. Fred Edwards, who was, I think he was director of research for STS, Dr. Edwards, Fred Edwards. And there was California had a rule that said you have to have 2 heart surgeons on every single case. And it didn't make sense to do that. And from the STS's perspective, the Society of Thoracic Surgeons' perspective, they're looking at this from individually. The heart surgeons don't want that to change because that adds a case for them as revenue. They got 50%. The primary surgeon got the full full CPT reimbursement, and then the assistant would get half of whatever, not of his reimbursement, but just a half amount.
over again, yeah.
And that was costing more and more and more money unnecessarily.
Right.
So as the society had to take a position on this and put out a position statement, he was confronted with, do I do what is best for our community at large, or do I do what is best for an individual? Because he was getting a lot of political pressure.
Sure.
And they had to make that decision, and that made that change. But that was a rule for the longest time.
Wow, interesting.
So, but think about it from a perfusion perspective.
Right.
If we had to have 2 perfusionists per procedure, what do you do when you have not because right now there's a shortage of us, there's a shortage of perfusionists on a national level. I'm assuming it's international. There's a shortage of heart surgeons as well. People aren't even going into it. So if we had that same rule, how would we address that? We wouldn't be able to do the cases, the number of cases we do, we wouldn't have enough of us. So, and small programs would have to close.
Right, because they can't afford to keep.
Right.
Yep.
Very complex, there's complex issues.
Yes. And so in terms of partnering with our global friends, AMSECT has an international consortium of evidence-based perfusion. If you look at that group, very well organized, lots of global participation, and they do a lot of sharing there. You know, when COVID first began, of course, Europe, China and Europe, Asia and Europe were the first ones dealing with it. So AMSEC did put together a group called the COVID Task Force. They asked several of us, including people from directors on the board, to participate. And it was great because you wanted to know what they were doing. You wanted to know what was happening. You wanted to talk about what they were doing, how they were getting supplies, what were they dealing with. Of course, when we started seeing it in the States, the hot spots, New York, and those task force meetings were just very enlightening. I think it also just brought the commonality of what we do as perfusionists anywhere in the world together, and we were just hungry to know what was happening. It was a way to communicate. You read the news, you can do it, all of that, but boots on the ground. What are you seeing? What's going on? And even just to comfort each other and encourage each other, on what's happening and how you doing.
There's no comfort in perfusion, and you know that.
Well, okay. You said there's no crying.
there's
But I mean,
there's no
I think there
comfort
can
either.
be comfort and compassion in perfusion. But I will say probably the rub in, Mike, your earlier question is the credentialing of the programs. I think that's where we all have our unique. So for instance, we recognize the Qual Canada in terms of their accrediting and their schools. So because we at ACPE recognizes that too, they are allowed to sit for our board exam. So any graduate in Canada can take both theirs and ours.
Oh, okay.
And several of them will do it at the same time. Some of them will wait and maybe take our American board later. Again, they don't necessarily see that they would come to work in the United States. But if you look at it now, there is a discrepancy in pay. So we have seen people come across to go work, again, fill the shortage, fill the need, and most of them already have that CCP credential.
Okay.
So again, the education approval is what's different. So for instance, I probably couldn't apply for a European credential. I maybe could challenge it with a letter or something, but I wasn't educated at one of their approved programs.
Right.
And this is probably true for Australia or India or any of the other things. So there's that bottom point is kind of who's recognizing your education.
Right.
And how is it recognized and who allows that?
I'm just curious, with the Canadian accreditation, can somebody trained in the U.S. take a Canadian boards, or can you just be CCP and work in Canada?
So great example, because I have a coworker whose spouse was transferred to Canada for 3.5 years, and they went with them, and through his work visa, they could work as a perfusionist because they had the CCP. They didn't necessarily have to have the Canadian credential,
Yeah.
but they had the CCP. So but they had to work in a supplemental role, because if there was any job posted, again, that's a single payer system there in Canada, it was citizen first. So that's where the protectionism came
I
in.
see, yeah.
If there was a position that person could apply for, the CCP from the States, they were going to give that to a citizen first. They'd have to see if a Canadian applied.
Okay.
And then if they did, that wouldn't be that person, our CCP's job. It would have to go to the Canadian.
Can, may I interrupt? May I ask Tabby a question? Can we come to Thailand and work in perfusion?
You need to test for the license.
You have to, so you have to have you have to pass that exam.
Yeah, and the exam in
But are
Thai
we
language.
In Thai language?
Yes, because you need to we take care of the Thai people. They concerned that you can communicate.
Yes.
You understand.
Very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But
you've got
there's
some
our-
work to do.
I've got a lot of work to do. Yeah, that's an understatement. Thanks for pointing that out, Deb.
Just so you know.
Throw it out there. But does our education here qualify us? Let's say we spoke fluent Thai. Does our education here allow us to take your board's exam or your license exam?
I can't answer. I need to check. No case. No
curious.
case like that. Yeah, that's a very good question. But no case that happened like this. Yeah, I can't answer right now.
'Cause I'm-
I'll answer you.
Okay,
Let
good,
me
because
check.
I'm downloading Babbel while we're doing this.
Okay.
The Thai Babbel.
You just say "swaddi krap," one word that you
Sawadee
say
krap.
right now.
That's it. I'm good.
So, I mean, we've been talking about it all morning. I think we're stronger together. I think we really like to collaborate. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. And it's interesting to see what will happen. We're more connected than ever, electronically, virtually. COVID kind of hastened that along. We can talk to each other and all over the world. We can actually show things that we're doing all over the world. I mean, YouTube, I don't know how many things I've looked up on YouTube to see. So what's the right answer? What is a perfect perfusion world? Or what are people concerned about? Do you worry about having a credential that has potential crossover because of job security? I mean, do people in Thailand, do they want to come to the United States? That doesn't really matter. Or, I mean, I think sometimes we view it as people are trying to get here. But is that true?
I can't answer really. It depends. I think your question is we pursue to work here or not, right? Is that your
Yes,
question?
I think what she's asking is, so physicians, now, I think this goes both ways, though.
Okay.
I think physicians, a lot of physicians want to come to the United States and work because they can make more money. There's more money here than there may be in whatever their host country is, whether it be Cuba or whether it be South America or whether it be some places in Europe, because they're more of a socialized medical, even Canada. But yet those countries have a lot of physicians that stay and they're very committed to their countries. So the question, I think, is, are there a portion of perfusionists in Thailand that would like to come here to the United States, not because they don't love Thailand, but that's a single payer mostly, right? You're mostly government funded in Thailand, your healthcare system.
Yes.
They want to come here because they want to have a different lifestyle where you make more money and you have a different environment.
Yeah, I got the point, but really hard to answer. May have some. I mean, but I don't think not too many.
Not too many?
Yeah, but may have some. But we have the case that she married. My friend, she married with American. She graduated the same bachelor degree of mine, the cardio and thoracic technology. She married with American and she lived in the U.S. That's a good point. how can she, I mean, how can be the perfusionist, in the U.S. in this case?
Yes, that's a
Right.
great question.
So she's
Yeah.
here, but she's not working as she was trained.
Yeah,
Right,
so
she's a trained perfusionist, experienced perfusionist.
She has
But-
to go back to school
So,
right now.
so she would
Right,
have to
as
go.
it is.
She
She would
need
have to
to,
go to school.
go to school, the perfusionist school again, in the
Again.
U.S. Yeah.
And that's an awful big burden,
That is.
you know? And are we going to, that's a great question. I'm glad we brought this up because Deb, you're THI, you're board. Mike, you know, you may have some people, you've been to Russia and you've done cases there before, okay? So you know, we all have this experience. Is THI have any kind of integration program like that?
Not currently, no.
Is that something that's you're considering? Look at whether, regardless of where they're from, whether it be Thailand, somebody who actually came here from Europe or came here from South America that is, you know, has a perfusion experience and wants to work here. What is their choice besides going to a full program, having to get in? You know, because that's a process. Here's somebody who can actually do the job, is doing the job, has experience. Should we be looking at those mechanisms? Is it the right thing to do? Politically, is there pushback for it? Protectionism, we talked about that. Is, you know, we've been in a shortage, but now there's a bunch of schools that are opening up and pumping students out. So are we going to go to a glut and be like we were before with the dark days of perfusion when you'd had to take a job in the city where one was available versus where you wanted to be? Where are we going with all of this?
For us, again, the Texas Heart Institute is a private nonprofit. It was founded, you know, and the mission is still the same that when Dr. Cooley started it, 60 years ago. And Charlie Reed, who started the perfusion school, was very, very passionate about international education and developing our profession, both domestically and internationally. And, you know, we weren't so globalized, so he would go there and invite so many people, and we were all impacted by that. In our training during the early 80s, we had visitors from all over the world, and Charlie. So that's intertwined in who we are. And however, I think as long as we continue to focus on what you said, our goal is to do what's best for the patient and the community. And so in that, we have to make sure that we meet the standards. Are they educated at the level that we've decided today is the standard that a perfusionist needs? The knowledge, the skills, and the professional behaviors that they need to be able to serve whatever community that they go in. But today, no, Texas Heart doesn't have a pathway for an international student to be able to accelerate their training. Other programs they do, university institutions have, a pathway where they can take it. But right now, I think everyone would have to actually retrain. I think Canada, actually, a few international students have, like Ann was saying, have challenged their challenged their board and their education and been able to, like, sit for their exam. But I think it's a very individual thing. But I do, and Ann may be getting on this later, I do think there's more conversation about international accreditation and sponsoring organizations that, whether it be collaboration. I know there's, a place in Africa right now, Bob Groom's over there, that's close.
Yeah, Bob Groom, yeah.
So, so I think, I would love to have an affiliate in Thailand, where Texas Heart and a program has an affiliation where then,
Yes.
there would be THI students or we would be students of your place. So, I don't think that's
That's
And do a
wonderful.
rotation.
yeah.
type of
I
thing.
mean, I think would be
And you're able to jointly develop the core curriculum because I imagine the training I mean, look at where she has come. She started off as going through a
Yeah.
bachelor's perfusion program to now a physiologist, PhD physiologist, working on postdoctorate stuff as well. I mean, so if there was a program, whether it be there, whether it be other places, it doesn't matter. You look at, I don't mean to keep doing this, but I do it all the time, but look at Francis Robacek, right? He's a brilliant heart surgeon here in the United States, right, out of Carolina Heart. Where'd he come from? He came from Hungary. He still had a Hungarian accent.
Well,
There's
Dr.
a-
Del Nido.
Del Nido, right.
He's from South America.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they are able to do that.
Yeah.
They have a process in place. They didn't have to go back to medical school. They didn't have to go back to CV surgery training. Their abilities, their credentials were accepted through a process. But I think if you had a THI affiliate, for example, Thailand or wherever, doesn't matter, you get a multiple, and students were able to come back and forth, that would be, I think, very useful.
And enriching for both programs and for both communities. And again, so my role is to be an educator and then to focus on, are we educating at the highest level? So we have, and then I think it's then other organizations, then when I'm part of the accreditation or our board, then we have to talk about how we best represent our collective community. And then the conversations about, do we recognize your training? Are you allowed to get your CCP? Are you allowed to work here? But that shouldn't be, when I'm thinking about how I want to educate a student, that isn't
Right.
right. That shouldn't be
Yeah.
there.
That's not in your that's not right.
Yeah,
And that
and
makes
so-
sense. Perfectly good sense.
And then just a natural, I guess, organic part of the whole situation is, and you'd probably be best to ask this, being still from THI and everything, is why would we have the opportunity to bring a foreign student in when probably the number of
That's a
United
good-
States people are trying to get into the schools?
That's a good
I
point.
bet there's probably more you turn away than you accept.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's getting
So,
more every
I
year.
mean, it's just sheer numbers
Yeah.
of people that know the profession
Right.
now and have this ardent, fervor to come into it because they've seen it, they've watched it, they were, cath lab techs, and then they look at the perfusionists, go, well, that is
Absolutely.
really, really neat. So I think that is just a natural adherence from anybody wanting to try to come through.
Very
Very good.
true.
And I mean, and you've had international students
Yes.
obviously come through, and so they come and they get their CCP, and they can keep it. It's on, because we'll accept for their case requirement as long as the case has been done on a human being. If they turn in their annual recertification, they'll always have it. It doesn't have to be work in the States, but the first part of that is they had to be educated in the States or from an accredited program, which
Exactly.
is
Right.
pretty much mostly in the United States. But they do go back, and I'm thinking of Greece in particular. We've had several.
Yeah, we've got-
THI's had several.
We've got 1, 2, 3. There's 3, maybe 4 in Greece.
And they've gone back.
Yeah.
And I just, I'd be really interested if anyone's watching this program, just from a community, U.S. perfusion community, are you afraid to, is it job related? Is it economics? That I just would like to know. I mean, the board would like to know. Because
Well, I think, I think what would be an ideal thing to do would be to have, you have X number of students that you take at THI, and whether it be your school or any other school in the United States, where someone wants that CCP, that you have so many slots, whether it be 1 or 2, or you expand to allow for the extra 1 or 2, as the case may be, and you have foreign students who are allowed to apply to come. And, if there's an issue with, look, we have to protect our our profession here. We don't want to glut the number of people that we have, so we don't want to just have a massive influx like we have had of nurses that have come from the Philippines. That's very common. There's a whole community, I mean a lot of nurses that are from the Philippines. We don't want that to happen, but the understanding is you train here, you have your CCP, you have to go back for X number of years and then can reintroduce if that's what you want to do and go through the process of finding a job, all the things that you have to do. But you went to Russia, I've been to Belize. I know you've been out of the country before. You go to Iran and Iraq and do a tremendous amount of work. And maybe that's the value of being a CCP, having the American board. But we can go to any country and do mission work. Nobody ever asks us anything about our credentials are just accepted. Right.
Well, and I think that's part of the appeal is that it does seem to be such a high credential, the CCP. And so it does,
Carries a lot of weight.
it carries a lot of weight, and I think it wants to be replicated, which is great, you know, because it just continues to raise that standard of globally. So that's wonderful. But, you know, Debbie, I was curious to know when you do go over to Iraq and Iran because I've heard other perfusionists say, oh, they're always asking, how can I be CCP? How can I be CCP? Do you hear that?
Oh, yeah, they want to be CCP. But my colleagues, especially in Iraq, they want to be CCP because they want to be recognized as a professional in their country. And so establishing perfusion as a profession and then having a credential, it isn't necessarily, you know, you get into a whole different why people want to migrate from one country to another. You're getting into lots of different things than, oh, because I want to go make a lot more money. I mean, really.
Some do.
There's some. That
So,
may be the
there's-
driver for some people, but, you know, people leave when you leave your culture and your home and your family and your language to go somewhere else. I mean, I've done it, you know, in a month or 2 month segments to do that for you know, your life. So I would think something's deeper is driving, you know, whether it's security, safety, you know, and in Iraq, it's decades and decades and decades of instability. And so, yes, they want to be CCP, and they're proud. They want that pride. It isn't necessarily, maybe one out of that group wanted to come to the United States. They want to be there, and they want to take care of their people and their families.
Yeah, I believe that.
and
I think
so-
that is the overwhelming majority. But there are, you know, and I think it would be naive to ignore completely that there's a lot of physicians from India, from many other countries that come here so that they're in a more innovative place, but they can definitely have a much higher standard of living. It's a reality. I think it's true. Otherwise, why come?
Yeah, and so
Because India is not an
then-
unstable country. If
then
you
we-
go to medical school in India, you're coming from a pretty safe, secure life. You know, you don't have. I don't think physicians in India. I don't think India is a decompensated country, but we have a lot of people from there that are here in the United States.
So then that makes us
not a
all
bad
better.
thing.
I think that makes us all better. Then you better be the best that you can be. And then you as an employer, you hire the most qualified person. And you know, she's got a PhD and she's a perfusionist.
That's why I've been
and
trying to
I mean,
hire.
Really?
Why do you think we're here? I'm trying to hire her, trying to figure out how can I get her certified so she can start
I'm in
work tomorrow.
trouble.
Yeah, I'm in trouble too. Look at me. Okay, all I have going for me is my good looks. So, okay, I'm sorry.
No, we don't digress. We're really kind of at the end anyway, and because
Yeah, we are. We're
Yes.
right there. Look at, we're right on time. We
I
are
love
right
that.
on time.
What
So
a cool slide.
it's a beautiful
Awesome.
slide.
Beautiful,
Love it.
beautiful.
Very cool.
So
Very rainbow.
So before we close it out, Tabby, what did you think? What's your view on MediWeb, the studio, your new friends, all of your new friends. You're gonna meet even more people. We got Ryan Levanova is right there. Ryan, come here for, and Vicky, of course, Vicky, my wife, beautiful wife, Barbara. Come here, Barbara. Oh, come on. They won't come. Ryan, I want you to stand right now. Hey, how are you? I want you to stand next to next to Tabby.
Nice to meet you.
So we had a discussion. I want to get you on camera for this, and this is live.
Aren't you
okay?
excited?
You can focus in on Tabby and Ryan anytime you want. So you've done a lot. Levanova has done a lot to help support Tabby, who, if you don't, I'm assuming you've seen some of this already. You know that she is from Thailand. She is a perfusionist. She's also a physiologist, PhD physiologist. She's here in the United States doing some work. But you guys have done, she showed us one of her slides, a lot of support for her training program that she's heavily involved with in Thailand. And I think they need some additional assistance. So Tabby, you're here. He's here. This is Levanova. I think that what you need, ask for it now.
Yeah, it would be great to get one more S5.
One more S5.
student.
There you go. And that's an easy one, dude. Ryan, that's an easy one. Okay. Come on. Done. And they need another S5 for their training program. So they definitely need one. And you guys have surplus. Come on. You have plenty of them.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have him.
We'll work on it. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it so very much. We're getting ready to cook some crawfish, but before we close this out, do you have any words? Do you have anything to say?
No, sir.
No? No.
But you say yes for S5.
Yes.
Everybody hear that.
Boom.
What? That was a good one,
Boom.
Tabby. Just
Good,
say yes.
quick one. So let's just go around, Mike. Start closing us out. We're going to finish up.
Another great PerfWeb. It's interesting. I like that we divulge from purely clinical into things like this, because a lot of people out there in the field in these small accounts you talked about earlier don't get a chance to get this feedback and know what's really going on with the board. I think it's interesting that even in our own United States, not all of our states have licensure. So we still have a long way to go too for us to be totally on board. It's just interesting to see how other countries do it, and it's very informative. Enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just want to thank you for inviting me.
Thank
Joe
you for
called
coming.
me and was like, "What are you doing?" I thought it was Dr. Frazier.
Well,
what are you doing?
Okay.
Then I was like, "Oh no, it's Joe,"
Which is scary. Dr. Frazier's calling you.
That. So you thought, okay, that hurt. That hurt. Okay.
No,
I know
love it
Dr.
when
Frazier.
Dr. Frazier calls me. It always starts off with like, "What are you doing?" Which means I need you to do something. But it's been a wonderful conversation. Again, commended. Just kudos and congratulations for all the work and the accomplishments. And I do have one question. What can we do, our community, all of us here and everybody listening, to help support your mission, your goals, to continue to expand perfusion education, your profession in Thailand? If there's anything we can do besides getting you a S5.
Wow, that's so appreciate and very nice question. Let me tell one story. I give the same presentation, but for the Asian community. For Singapore, from Malaysia at that time, and after my talk, they email me. They want to attribute the education system the same way as we did, how they can do, how they can collaborate. So to answer your question, your support it's not only for Thailand, but I was thinking about our Asian community. Yeah, we still need that. If you mention about the affiliate, or we can collaborate with like Texas Heart. Everybody know Texas Heart's Perfusion. That would be good. That would be perfect for us.
Well, we'll talk offline.
Thank you.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Ms. Guercio?
Well, I would have to say, again, Tabby, thank you. I learned so much. And again, congratulations. I mean, what a great journey. And I think I love what Deb said in terms of, and what you want to do in terms of reach out. Just because through that collaboration with, between Ed and BB, Hofstra and the Dominican Republic will, they will exchange students. So again, you know, out of these collaborations come really interesting, great things. And so I would just say, let's just keep doing it, because you just never know where it's going to go.
Thank you.
So.
So I have just very quickly before I turn it over to you, are we ever going to have the need to recertify, like surgeons do, CRNAs do? Are we going to have to one day? I won't. I'm too far gone. But are people going to have to, the younger generation, have to take a recertification test after 10 years or whatever number of years is designated?
There's no appetite for that right now. If you survey the community, overwhelmingly no, they don't want to do that. But you know, will it over time prove that it's necessary?
Maybe so.
I think it's an open question.
I think so too. I think it is. It is. I know there's no appetite for it. No one has an appetite for that. Okay, it'd be nice to just graduate from perfusion school and automatically be an ABCP perfusionist, but that's not reality. So I think it'd be interesting. I know no one would want to do that, but I don't know that it's not a bad idea, because it helps you have to stay on your toes and know the things we're supposed to know, because we all have a propensity to forget a lot. And I have forgotten a lot in whatever number of years. I'm more forgetful now than I was when I was younger, but yeah. Well, I started taking Perfusion though. I think it's starting to help. So, but Mike, you brought up a very good point. And these programs that we're doing, and this is for you and for Ann and for Deb, for Deb and for Ann as well, and others out there that are listening. This is a fun format, right? We have the ability, we're having a conversation about stuff, and it's fun, right? It's not the just humdrum of all of the science, which is extremely important. Probably shouldn't say that to somebody who's doing postdoctorate work, but I'll say it anyway. But at the end of the day, that is such a needed element. We have so much experience, especially somebody like yourself, like all of us here that are just older and more experienced and have stayed abreast with things and spend time reading and studying and learning, and maybe not doing research in its purest form, but we are very involved in a lot of people doing research and learn a lot. And how do we, with your thought on the Asian society, develop a routine international online, which makes it so that we can reach anyone in the world, academic forum where we're not doing one big long conference that's in a week, which is very hard to do. It's like herding cats. It's very difficult. But how do we do that in short bits on a routine basis where you have a computer, you have a camera, you have a microphone, and you're set? We have this beautiful studio and all of that, but it doesn't have to be this. It can be just people giving lectures, and how do we help develop that? And you have, of course, with THI, all these academic minds, all of these perfusion, experienced people that are instructors. You have all those physicians around there, intensive care medicine docs. It doesn't only have to be about perfusion. No. It can be about the cardiac surgery experience, which starts from admission to discharge and actually beyond that, right? There's so many pieces and facets to what we do, and we infect so many, we're involved with so many things, whether it be neuroprotection, whether it be renal protection, whether it be myocardial protection, whether it be adequacy of perfusion, whether it be, there's so many even just components and how we're doing things and how we do retrograde cerebral perfusion. What's our technique? And somebody may see that and go, man, that's the best way to do it. I've been doing it like this. I want to do it this way now. It may be a better choice. We may learn from them, right? How do we develop that kind of structure where the programs are ongoing, much like this does, only about those academic subjects that people from different parts of the world can participate in? I think that's a valuable service that we could do. And not do it for monetary gain, do it for giving back to the community. That's the key to all of this for me. I don't do this for money. This program, by the way, was free, 2.4 Category 1 CEU. Yay. Thank you, Ann. Thanks for approving the program.
Thanks to the research committee.
Forgot to mention that.
Good job, Joe.
Good job. Good job.
And you wonder why it was so difficult for you to like get anything approved.
This was valuable information.
No, because you forget to say thank you.
Oh, that's why I forgot. That's my. I knew that I knew there was a reason I was at fault for it. But anyway, Tabby, Dr. Kulthinee, otherwise known as Dr. Tabby, or just Tabby.
Just Tabby.
You get to wrap up the day, say whatever you want to your friends and colleagues that are having their meeting soon in a few hours when they wake up. They're going to see this. Floor is yours.
Yeah, it's still exciting. You know, it's far away from me. We just watch PerfWeb from YouTube so long time. Even my students said, "Can you invite Joe Barza teach us?" That's the beginning that I met you almost 2 or 3 years. And finally, I'm here, but just not only Joe Barza, but with everybody. I would say thank you so much. And yes, for friends in Thailand, I know you're the same as me. We follow PerfWeb for long, and yeah, finally we are here. We are here. Our love in perfusion bring us together. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, we'll see you all, I believe. Thank you.
How do you
Very
say thank
nice.
you in Thai?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, you say ขอบคุณค่ะ
Say it again.
ขอบคุณค่ะ
Kap kun ta.
ค่ะ ขอบคุณค่ะ
Kampunta.
Okay, I say
Okay.
for everybody.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, say it for everybody.
ก็ขอบคุณนะคะ ขอบคุณอีกครั้งนะคะ ขอบคุณค่ะ
We all agree with her.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all on Tuesday. I'm going to go change clothes and start cooking some crawfish. See you later. Bye.
All right.